We're still in the Exploring Monastic Life program, and there's a very beautiful request for training that Venerable Children wrote a few years ago that I think most people in the program participated in last week. Is that correct? Who took that ceremony to request training? Can I see your hands? Everybody in EML? Okay. I'm going to read this ceremony or part of it for people to hear it. It's just very beautiful, and it's quite something to ask for, really. And it goes like this. So the people making the request recite this to Venerable Children and the community elders, and they say, I have observed my mind and seen that I am under the control of afflictions and karma that cause suffering to others and myself. Wishing to free myself from these and to attain liberation and enlightenment, I request training at Sravasti Abbey. During my stay here, I will abide in the 5 precepts plus celibacy in order to cultivate mindfulness and introspective awareness. Knowing that the Abbey guidelines have been developed to create conducive circumstances for Dharma practice, I will use them to guide my actions. I will follow the Abbey's daily schedule to give structure to my practice. Because I am not perfect, I request the members of the community to support me in training my mind, subduing afflictions and cultivating virtue. Because others are not perfect, I will practice cultivating patience and compassion. All of us are like rocks in a tumbler. Together we will smooth each other's rough edges and polish each other so that we become radiant gems who are wise and joyful and who work for the benefit of all sentient beings. And it goes on with commitment for a length of time to stay. So I'm very curious to know, for those of you who made that request, what were you asking for? What does that request for training mean to you that day? What does it mean to you now? And what experiences have you had? So who would like to share about that? Oh, all the hands are in the air. Wonderful. We'll have to do a bit of editing because there's going to be a big time lag now.
When I made the request in the ceremony, then it was the first step in what I hope to be further mentoring and learning. And after going through a portion of the course, what it means today is that there is still a great deal of work to be done. But I am glad that I made the request.
Thank you. I'm just very curious about this, what you were thinking when you were requesting training. Were you requesting feedback? Or were you requesting praise and admiration?
Should I answer the first two as well? Or just...
Sure.
Okay. I request for all the monastic community to share their wisdom and to support me in my practice, which has been going on for quite some time and has taken me anywhere, because I realized after being several days here, I was practicing without compassion, without empathy for others, and the necessary patience to make progress. The difference has been remarkable. From day one, it has been progressive, so like in a crescendo. From day one to one, it doesn't even compare.
So maybe I'll continue with the talk, and this is a question that I have for myself as well. Was there someone else? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carol.
So on the first day, I felt I was looking for guidance and inspiration.
If you have other thoughts, oh, there's someone else waving her hand. Okay, Thomas.
The first day I was definitely just, having looked at my mind a little bit, wanting that feedback and wanting to face all my flaws and kind of, rather than having them run my life like they've been running my life for a long time, I wanted to just kind of face them. But I also feel that I've lacked compassion both for myself and others. And I appreciate the analogy of rocks in a tumbler, because not only in my interactions with other people, but also just it feels like my own thoughts kind of banging against each other. Sometimes it's kind of smoothing something out within me. So I feel like I appreciate this commitment because it's kind of this intention that we set is, at least for me, it's kind of holding me through all the different frustrations that arise and just keeping me going with momentum, I would say.
Thank you. I think it's a question that it's good for all of us to continue asking ourselves. So if something else comes to mind later, you can raise your hand. I think that whether we're here for a long stay or, we're in an anagarika phase of our training or we're ordained, we may notice in a short period of time being here, and I'll speak for myself, this happened initially, that we start looking at things here at the Abbey and we're seeing that they're in great need of revision. And I'm just the person to revise it because, I have all of these life experiences. I've managed hundreds of people. I've got 2 degrees. I've got a PhD. Here's my CV. I have all of these world experiences to share with the Abbey. And that's about what my CV is worth. And I'll roll that up and use it later. And so we start looking at everything here that should be changed. And then we've got the great comeback for this. So we give our great wisdom, and then it's met with, maybe you should give yourself some time and think about why things are happening the way we're doing things here. The great comeback is, don't you want feedback? That one doesn't work so well here either, I've noticed. So I think it's really valuable to take some time, and when we start noticing things that need revision, to think about the fact that the Abbey has been established now for 14 years. A lot of thought has gone into developing this whole thing we've got going here. Venerable Children has years of experience in different communities, and a lot has been talked through and experienced. And yes, there are things that can be improved upon, but I think we should hit the pause button when we see the mind that jumps in and says, this should be different. The schedule should be like this. We should start practice at 11 a.m. because, my mind, I've got the 24-year-old mind. There's research out there that shows I should sleep till 10:30. I'll be much healthier and more productive. I can sleep till 10:30. And, I don't really want to clean bathrooms. It's like, I didn't have to do it at home. Why should I do it here? So this takes me to 2 scenarios that are true scenarios. One happened in July in British Columbia. One is unfolding this week. So here's the first scenario. So you'll need the microphones handy again. Get them ready. And I'm going to read this first story out in stages, and I'd like your response. So the first thing that happens one day in Burnaby, which is a suburb of Vancouver, a woman tosses a cigarette butt out of a car window. Now, in Canada, it's a $500 fine to do any kind of littering. People know that. Currently, British Columbia is in a state of emergency. There's more than 148 wildfires burning in the province. Vancouver and the whole area is covered in smoke. And if she was raised in Canada or the United States, from the time of kindergarten until grade 12, we're indoctrinated about what to do with garbage and recycling. So what other choices could she have made that day instead of flicking her cigarette butt out of the window? There were many choices she could have made. The next thing that happens, a man called Vincelli picks up the cigarette butt, throws it back at her. What else could he have done? Aside from that, put it in the trash. Put it out and put it in the trash. Call the police. Gently knock on her window and say, "Ma'am, do you know you dropped something?" He could have just thought, she's having a really bad day. Out of compassion for her, I'm going to just take care of this cigarette butt. We could have had the focus outward. Third step in this story. The woman stops her car, goes into the bank, comes out with a man, and they follow the man, Vincelli, into a Starbucks. Instead of doing that, what else could they have done, or she have done? Obviously, she went to the man, told him her story about what happened to me. The 2 of them follow this man, Vincelli, who flicked the cigarette back at her. What else could they have done? What could the man have done for the woman who's enraged, probably? Give her some empathy, talk her down. Hey, it's not such a big deal. Why are you feeling insulted about this? And on and on. Okay, here's the sad part. The witnesses in Starbucks saw the following. The woman with the man punched Vincelli. He fell and struck his head on a counter and collapsed on the floor. 3 days later in the hospital, he died. This is what happens with untrained minds. We get enraged because of what happened to me. You insulted my friend. You did this to me. Boom! And all these lives are changed forever. I'm sure that the two, I don't know for sure right now, they'll be charged with some degree of a murder charge. The other man is dead. His family is in grief right now. All the families are probably in absolute shock. And it happened in seconds. In seconds, that can happen to any of us without mind training, without this request for training. So without any tools in our mind, we all fall prey to our knee-jerk responses. The self-centered thinking takes over. It dominates. We create negative karma. We bring profound suffering to ourselves and others. And now we're going to go to the world scene that's unfolding as we speak, which echoes the cigarette tossing story with a very big difference. This week, there have only been words. There's no action right now. There's only been words, and yet the situation is intensifying, as you know. Our president is ratcheting up the responses, and I'll just remind you of what's been going on in case you don't know, and some of you don't know. Aggressive exchanges between Trump and the North Korean regime in rhetoric more forceful than any US president typically has used is taking place. As tensions escalate and the North Korean empire keeps developing its nuclear and missile programs, in the face of international opposition, Trump and other world leaders face a set of limited and difficult options to respond. On Tuesday, Trump strongly warned North Korea against threatening the United States in a reportedly improvised line. And he said this: North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. North Korea's state media responded by saying that the country was considering a plan to attack the US territory of Guam. It also called Trump's statement nonsense and said that only absolute force can work on him. On Thursday, the Korean state media said military leaders there were working on a proposal to launch 4 immediate-range missiles into the sea less than 25 miles off of Guam's coast. In an early morning tweet today, Trump appeared to warn North Korea regime that the US military was on the verge of a strike. Military solutions, he said in a tweet this morning, are now fully in place, locked and loaded, should North Korea act unwisely. So as you can imagine, in the first story about the cigarette tossing, there were no level-headed minds around to mediate the situation, and it happened in seconds. Right now we have minds all over the world, and even in this country, that are trying to, nudge this person into some sort of thoughtful action. Foreign policy experts watching this fraught situation between the United States and North Korea hope it stays that way. America's best course, the experts say, is to dial back the apocalyptic language, boost pressure on Beijing and Moscow to bolster economic sanctions against North Korea, and open communication links. In short, de-escalate. And it needs to be done immediately. There's no point, and we all know this, there's no point in the United States in trying to match North Korea rhetorically. The US instead should be the adult figure here and should be operating from a position of strength and moral authority, which is not reflected in hostile words. The US knows that if it were to attack North Korea would bomb Seoul or shoot missiles at Tokyo, and that would bring disaster to the entire region. So, if Trump today in his language is actually referring to a nuclear response, which is the only thing that can be ready right now, when he says locked and ready, then we know that the outcome of nuclear weapons is catastrophic and will result in potentially millions of deaths and profound suffering for those who don't die immediately. Here's the thing that's alarming. The time span from the order to unleash nuclear weapons to their release is 5 minutes. Trump will be met with people who will refuse to carry out that order. So, back to the cigarette tossing story, and to tie this all together. The world is in this situation today because of two people, just two people, who are currently political leaders, and they have access to unlimited power. So we can see that two people can have a profound impact on the entire world. So this is clear evidence to me that what each and every one of us does with our body, speech, and mind matters. So the more we can lessen our negative habitual tendencies and grow our good qualities, the more we'll be able to meet situations with a mind that's not in reactive mode. But we can investigate what's going on in our mind and how to counteract the negativity by applying antidotes, and to be curious more about what's going on in the mind of the other person. So to do this, we need to hear teachings repeatedly, we have to reflect and meditate on them, and we have to rehearse the antidotes on the cushion. And most of all, speaking to myself now, we need to fully convince ourselves that the enemy, the only enemy, is self-centered thinking.